Greetings, Hacksters. Welcome to another Hackster Café. Today we have Tim Keller and also Ivory from Struder, as well as you're also the Executive Director of Inventopia Makerspace. What's up? And also you are affiliated with Gunrock Ventures, which you have so many different hats that you wear, and it all seems to be focused around this concept of bringing 3D fabrication and fabrication in general, and startups and all this, making all these things accessible to more people in the world, so that they can start their hardware business, or get started making that one thing they've wanted to make forever. And I'm really excited to ask you more about this Struder 3D printing pen, which is part of that
Yeah,
plan. So anyway, good morning. How's it going?
we're good. We're good. Happy to talk about all of that stuff. Oh, when you go wide, you can see the fact that I'm hiding in the middle of my makerspace.
Classic. Love to see it.
Yeah.
And in the comments also we have folks from Hackster Cafe sharing some of the news. I'm going to run us through a couple of announcements from our host, Hackster.io. I'm a pro partner. So we have a giveaway for 300 Uno Q boards to help you bring your idea to life. You can find that in the comments here on YouTube, but also just go to Hackster.io and you can find all the information about that. You will need to verify your account in order to enter any of these initiatives, which is an extra thing that it just helps us collaborate with more sponsors and bring more of these things to you. So if you go to Hackster.io/contests, there's all kinds of different opportunities, but this is one of the flagship ones that's running right now. And again, if you're on YouTube, you can find the link to that in the chat, or you can just go to Hackster.io and click on that top banner or go to contests in the top. As per usual, we have a giveaway going on, and you have lots of different ways to enter that and earn points by doing different things on the site, and earn lots of cool stuff there. And then also, of course, we have our blog with tons of the latest hardware news, including stuff about 3D printing and more. Ooh, I haven't actually seen this thing. Oh, don't get distracted, Alex. Okay. Thank you, folks. It's a constant challenge. There's too much cool stuff on there, I swear. I don't look at our social media at all. So, Struder, though, could you please tell
Yeah.
us what's going on with this thing? Because I got to see it at Maker Faire Bay Area last year, and
Yeah.
it kind of blew my mind with all the extra features and stuff it has compared to the janky one that I got for free with a cheap 3D printer years ago, and I've been using since then. Like the
Yeah.
light years and leaps ahead that you have are incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of born out of something that I kind of always wished I existed. I had cheap 3D pens like this. There was a time when I was playing with my son with one of these, and I took off my glasses to kind of clean them, and the temple of those old glasses right here just like evaporated, and it had this like sharp wire, and I was like, because it was like silicone, so it kind of just like fell apart. I don't know why, but so I just took the 3D pen and was like, oh, like fixed it. I was like, that's really useful, and that kind of blew my mind. And then the pen quickly broke after that, and then I bought him another one, and that one broke. And so being someone who I'm not like a tool fetishist, but like I run a makerspace. I don't want to buy stuff that breaks, right? And the people around the makerspace tend to be hard on the tools anyway. I buy good tools. I have, CNC machines with flood coolant. I have, Bamboo Labs H2Ds. I mean, like I try to buy good tools, and I don't like wasting money on cheap tools. And so I really decided like someone needs to do a better job of this. And I looked around and no one was doing it. So we had a make-a-thon here. Dale Doherty from Make Magazine came and officiated. It was a cool event, and I prototyped it at that make-a-thon. And then I took it to the Maker Faire, and other people were like, "Oh, this is great," And so we took it to the Maker Faire 3 years, and just to share it with people, give kids a hands-on activity to do. I mean, I really made it for hacking adults, but kids like it too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a competitive thing. That picture in the middle there is from the Maker Faire this last year. And
I remember seeing this cool mask, which is behind you.
So
too.
Yeah. So what's humbling about that is I've been playing with the 3D pen for a long time, for 3 years, and I've done some things like, my Gyarados here. I wanted to make something big, and I've made some other stuff. But Paige, the girl holding that stuff, she made this mask. It was like the first thing she ever did. There's one of those things where like it helps to be an artist.
Yeah.
Like, it actually lights up. It's not plugged in.
Oh,
But
no
like, look
way.
at, she did all this detailed line work on the side using the pen to add texture, and it's like the first thing she ever did was like way better than anything I've ever done. So it was a little humbling, but I guess talent counts for something.
Well, I see so many
But
people doing
yeah,
incredible stuff with this online, so.
I did it. I kind of did it because I wanted to be able to fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear you, Alex.
Oh, I think we might be having a little bit of lag, unfortunately. But please go on. You wanted to build, I think, big stuff, you said?
Oh, so did you see anything about the helmet?
Yes.
About that one?
Oh, wait, we saw the
Yes. Okay.
the one by Paige. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thing she ever did, and it was just way better than anything I had ever done. But I developed this because I wanted to do functional hacking. So like, this is my one wheel helmet, and I wanted to be able to put a flashlight on it, but because I'm on a one wheel, I'm always standing a little sideways. And so, I was able to sink threaded inserts into the helmet. I actually use the extruder to sink the inserts in there. And so I've hacked a billion different things around here with the 3D pen. I need to develop a list of things that I've done that are hackable in that way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You've got a bunch of really cool stuff up on your Instagram, including some stained glass and more like demonstrations of people using the tool. But another thing that you do is that you run this makerspace called Inventopia, and you also have this Gunrock Ventures organization. I'd like to go through some applications really quick, though, first. It honestly makes me a little nervous seeing like things screwed into the helmet, but I'm sure that you have trade-offs with that. One of the really cool things that I've seen people doing with 3D pens are actually, okay, so one thing that I've done with it is I've made prostheses in the past using like a flexible TPU filament, and I'm wondering like what are the main types of applications that you see people doing with these, and what are some of the like weirdest, wildest ones? Because you also have a little coffin for your first 3D printing pen, which I thought was an incredibly fun little project.
Yeah, and we used wood filament in that one, so it was literally a pine box. Yeah, the idea of prostheses is an interesting one because we can. It's so hard to measure your own your body parts, and so the ability to just lay the plastic directly onto the surface. I'll give you an example actually with this thing. So this was my Halloween costume a few years ago. If you look, this is black EVA foam, and you can connect that to itself using rubber cement. So I literally just made it to fit. And I'll show you how close of a fit this is. Like, you can't do this by measuring your head with calipers. Like, this is like perfectly just my head, right? I mean, it's so if you want to do things, especially like in cosplay, where trying to get a fit organically to your body is difficult. Using that EVA foam as kind of a base layer and then punching through it and making little rivets to then create a shell. You can see it's all 3D printed on the inside. And on the outside, this is called cosplay foam. It's very lightweight.
Wow.
And it's actually pretty fast. And so for the ability to kind of just, not worry about making something fit you, like, if you want to make a perch for your little owl here, I mean, you could just literally build it on you, two sides if you want.
That is so cool. Given my track record with
there are other
glue, I would
things that I
definitely
do.
burn myself though.
Yeah, people always ask me like, "Oh, isn't this dangerous?" You have this heat sink that's mounted here, and this thing is on. This thing is at 240 degrees. It's not hot. Just for the record, for the people who are wondering that, it's safer than a hot glue gun because hot glue sticks to you and it continues to transmit heat into you.
Yes.
You can kind of touch this, and it's not hot. It doesn't burn you. So yeah, hot glue.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely if I were like trying to build Archimedes on me. Oh yeah, it's a classic sort of rite of passage, and I seem to go through that rite of passage every time. Somehow the passage is never over. One thing I've been doing with Archimedes is this is kind of a rudimentary version. He's it's the off season, so he's very much asleep right now. But anyway, I've been heads on backwards. There we go. I've been attaching bike inner tubes with this sort of like stitching with 3D printing pens, and like that works so well. It's ludicrous. I've been wanting to write an article about it, but someday. But in the meantime, yes, it is too bad about the connection, alas. In the future, though, you're over in Davis with Inventopia. It'd be really cool to just like film a little spot at some point, and we'll do a follow up maybe with a short for our social media. So be sure to stay tuned with that stuff. In the meantime, just before we go too deep,
we are the nerdiest makerspace you've ever seen.
That's a tall order, but I believe you. So you're not only a makerspace, but you're also kind of an accelerator. Could you tell us a little bit more about what exactly Inventopia is?
Yeah, so I came to being a maker out of necessity from being an entrepreneur. So I started a wine closure company back in the 2000s. After that, I was a winemaker. And I was always kind of fixing stuff around in the world around me. But I started a wine packaging company, and I had to invent my own science. I taught myself CNC machining because I was raising money in the middle of the Great Recession, so I had more time than I had cash. And so I self-taught myself CNC. I self-taught myself industrial electronics. And I was like, I once bought a pH meter that I needed on the first day of a 6-month experiment, and the pH meter was like $600. I used it 8 times in 10 years, and I was like, hey, it would be sweet if there was a place where you could share these resources, because I never needed my CNC machine every day. I bought, all of this different stuff, and I used it very infrequently. I absolutely needed it. Absolutely, like I had to have it, but it wasn't fully utilized. And so I felt like, hey, maybe we can just share these tools with other people who have similar needs. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. Turns out I had invented the makerspace, and someone else had already thought of it beforehand. But that's basically what Inventopia is. The reason why it's so nerdy is that most of the companies here are life science. So I have a whole engineering side. We have companies here that are doing like basic plastic fabrication from lactate, like trying to make 3D printer filament. I have a guy who's working on being able to euthanize fish in aquaculture. I mean, these are not things you normally find in normal maker spaces. And I have a large wet lab, which has most of my companies are wet lab. They're food companies. They're making novel proteins, or they're making caviar out of these little pelletized fungi. There's medical robotics here. There's solar panel robotics. We have a company, our biggest company that graduated here, has made soybeans that glow when they're being attacked by fungus. And it's a glow that you can see it's in the solar spectrum, where there's a black line in the solar spectrum, and it glows in that spectrum. So when you see from space, the fields kind of light up a little bit in that particular part on the solar spectrum, that these plants are telling you, hey, we're being attacked by fungi. Then farmers don't have to spray fungicide all willy-nilly. They just do it when the plants tell them to. So there's some like deep nerd tech there. That's kind of why I say we're one of the nerdiest. I mean, this UC Davis is, a lot of people don't know this, but UC Davis is the #1 food and ag school in the world. Food and ag is the #1 industry in the world. It's bigger than Silicon Valley. And this ecosystem, for whatever reason, has not that well developed. And the companies that are here are what I call tough tech. They take a long time to get to market. They're extremely expensive to get to market. And so what Inventopia does is I provide the structure. The startups are fragile. They kind of come and go, but they all need mostly the same kind of equipment. So, you know, I have centrifuges, I have PCR machines, I have -80 freezers, I have, you know, all of the stuff in the engineering shop. I have the best 3D printers I can find. I have CNC router. I mean, just everything. And those companies can come, they can use it, they can put their money towards their product and their team and not have to invest in, you know, facilities and overhead. You know, if you want to work, if you want to get access to lab space in the normal time, you need to be able to sign like a 3 to 5 year lease with a commercial landlord. And if you're a startup, they're not willing to do that. So there's really no way to jumpstart the early phases of entrepreneurship without a place like Inventopia.
Wow, that is so much cool stuff in one. My mind is still back on those soybeans where, like, you know, there's all these networks of sensors and everyone's working on like individual cameras and cameras mounted on robots and stuff, and it seems so much more efficient in some ways to have this eye in the sky option, whether it's a satellite or even like a drone or something with a camera where you can just check out the bioluminescence or like fluoresce or something, like based on
Yep.
and this concept of like using life science on life science. What I mean by that is, you know, all these applications of bioremediation of like heavy metals and things like this, and like you're talking about gene splicing or using
Yep.
organisms symbiotically in order to you know, help each other flourish, is just, I love that kind of stuff, and you're speaking like absolutely to my heart here. I love it. And let's see, you
Yeah.
also have done a fair amount of ag tech. This is also again getting our broad base before we go too deep here. So could you give us a little bit of
Yeah.
an overview on Gunrock Venture Studio?
Yeah, so that's a newer thing, and it's a response to the fact that, you know, I've helped over 40 companies here through Inventopia, and one of the things that I've noticed is that time, and because the people fail, the people don't, especially people from academic backgrounds, sometimes either don't have the they're not the CEO type, or they just would rather stay in academia and not grit it out as an entrepreneur. And I don't blame them for that. So a venture studio is a new model of venture capital that is, instead of, and we spit out companies. And, you know, Struder is one of these products that needs to exist. But it's not a unicorn company. Like most venture capitalists, they'll see, you know, can you make $1 billion with this? And if the answer is no, they move on. And there are a lot of good companies. In fact, Struder, because it mostly leverages the existing pathways of 3D printer parts. You know, most of these things are, most of the, like the heater and the filament driver, all like the expensive parts, those are off the shelf, or they're lightly modified off the shelf parts. So we actually don't have to invest a whole lot of money to bring this technology to market. But it's not $1 billion company. And so for most investor types, they would just pass. Whereas, you know, being able to, you know, I can bring this Struder to market for, you know, $200,000, and that's all the money it ever needs. And it, you know, it's going to be a niche product in a niche category. But, you know, if you look at how many 3D pens are out there, it more than justifies it. You know, Struder as a portfolio company for Gunrock could return our entire first fund. We're raising $4 million. And the risk is quite low. Like, we've already, you know, done Facebook ads. We've taken it to maker fairs. We've been running these prototypes for years now. So we know it works. The risk is pretty low. People are excited about it. But, you know, if you take it to a normal venture capitalist, they would just brush you off. So Gunrock is all about that. It's basically a bunch of people who have started companies before. They know what they're doing. They're not making the business type kind of entry-level mistakes. But we run individual companies as though they're projects. And so you don't need a full-time marketing person. You don't need a full-time payroll person for every single company. And that's what you would do normally. The way you started any general company is, sign some documents, recruit a board, get a website, find a name, find an attorney, all of this other stuff. And none of it's productive, especially until if the technology works and if anyone's interested in buying it. Until you've answered those two questions, it doesn't even make sense, I think, to spool up a whole company around it. So that's what we're doing here with Gunrock. It's the human investor capital leadership side of most of these companies is what kills them, not the technology. I've seen a lot of good technologies die. And, we want to think like, hey, there's some meritocracy of ideas. Like if it's a good technology, it'll find its way to market. That is absolutely not true. I've seen a lot of good technologies die. So the Gunrock is basically to fill that gap in particular.
Love what you're doing with that. And especially since these are sort of agricultural and food tech companies that aren't as suited to a crowdfunding platform, which is how, of course, a lot of the hardware companies that create things like Struder have sort of managed to do it. Speaking of which, you are about to launch a Kickstarter for Struder, I believe, and you can find out more about that on the website. So, I've been in hardware for maybe since like 2013-ish, and I've seen a lot of Kickstarters come and go, and we've seen a lot of like trends come and go. You've been doing startups and these sort of tough tech startups also for a ton of years, and so in the past, the wisdom was like for a while everyone was disgruntled because you had to create a video and like really go in hard on the video. People would spend a ton of money on this to try and like front load and get people excited about the product that they were launching on Kickstarter. But the last time I heard about that, went in depth on that type of thing was like 5 years ago. What's the landscape like now? Well, how are you preparing for your Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's a raw nerve actually. Kickstarter really isn't crowdfunding anymore. And if you wanted to raise money on Kickstarter to actually like pay for your development costs, you would spend more money in advertising than you would in the development costs. The competitive bar on Kickstarter is that people do their own advertising to drive people to your site, and the people who have the biggest kind of boom on day one are the ones who beat that algorithm and get the clicks, and they're the ones who break through. And since everyone else is advertising and bringing their own people, like you don't even get seen on Kickstarter apparently unless you get fully funded the first day and like that. So that competitive bar is such that you need to bring more money to the fight, as it were, than you might actually even make in terms of that sales. So I think it's a great platform. We're going to do a Kickstarter, but I have to raise money for Struder independently anyway. Because it's just that kind of marketplace. It's not really funding. It's more like a debutante ball or a quinceañera. It's kind of like hey, we're launching this thing. Everyone look at it. That's kind of what it is, and it's great for that. I mean, I'm not boycotting it, but a couple of years ago, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool? I've been doing all of these companies. All my companies have been B2B companies. I've done medical robotics. I worked the glowing plant thing. I did consulting for them for 2 years. I've done all these different things, and but never like a consumer product. And so I was like, hey, this will be easy. I'll just find a part that I'll just cobble together off the shelf parts and 3D printers, and we'll put it up on Kickstarter. People will give me money, and it's actually a lot harder than that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Even a few years ago when I was hearing about this, like what you're saying about sort of paying for the Kickstarter rather than raising money in order to use it as advertising. I was also hearing about people using it as basically social proof for fundraising. So like they do it as sort of a way to demonstrate interest and and an audience for the product, and then bring that to investors and be like, okay, now we'll get our actual money to run the company and stuff. So I'm curious. You have a pre-launch discount advertised on here. What is the price point that you're aiming at for this, and what goes into that? Since you have so much experience with this, with launching these companies and stuff, I'm curious about how you as an expert go about setting a price point for something like this.
Yeah, so It's not going to be a very high margin product for us. The baseline price is $275 for this, which is, like 5 times more than the cheap 3D pens. Of course, I've talked to people who replace these twice a year. The guy runs a library makerspace, and so it doesn't take very long for it and it's 4 times faster. So if your time is worth anything, and you don't want to be frustrated by how slow these things are, just the ability to spell out plastic saves you time. But we're basically not clearing the margin thresholds that people say you should. We've tested this, at the Maker Faire. We've asked people when they ask us how much it's going to be. And, when I kind of asked them, like, what do you think, you would want to pay? It seems that there's some hesitancy once we get over $300. So we're going to try to keep it around $275. Again, but the good thing with the model here is that this does not need to be the company that I buy a private jet using the proceeds from, right? This is one of her portfolio of companies. I want to make it for people like me. And that's basically it. So, we are having, for the Kickstarter, we're having a founders edition bundle that'll have the multiple nozzles. I can show you. We have a special nozzle we haven't told anybody about. A carrying case. It'll be specially anodized, stuff like that. So we do have one that has all the bells and whistles. That the MSRP is $350 for that, but then it gets discounted down to $275, and I think the baseline one gets discounted down to like almost $250 with the pre-order.
Wow, that's so cool. That's honestly, like, pricing wise, it sort of is about what I would expect for something like this in terms of being like an approachable price. I feel like I could see this being a lot more money, but I also hear that you're responding to actual conversations with people and like doing a lot of research around this. That thing that you mentioned with the library really struck me, because one of my favorite things that's going on with libraries nowadays is that they're sort of co-hosting these repair cafes. And with the speed and the sort of like repairability, it's still kind of meta where like you could use this really to great advantage, I think, in a repair cafe type situation where you don't have necessarily the opportunity to design a custom part to replace something for someone, but you could like make something that works in a few minutes, especially with how fast it is and the versatility of different filaments you can work with and stuff like that. The brain is going, gotta focus. But
can I show you something that'll blow your mind a little bit?
Oh no.
Okay. So I'm going to show you 2 different things. So one is this. This is drywall tape. This is specifically made, I think, for concrete, for the base one. Anyway, 3D filament sticks to this. And what you can do when you have this, yes, is that you can coat this. So this is a fiber reinforced plastic part. I made a dust collector for my CNC router that's in the other room, and over time it kind of broke, and I was able to use this tape to reinforce it and then coat this tape with PLA, because that thing was PLA, welding basically this in, and now I have a continuous fiber reinforced part. And so you can see I have a half formed box here. You could make living hinges. So like this is the strongest PLA box in Northern California. And you can lay this kind of reinforcement across the layer lines, right? We have one of these, fancy Markforged printers over there that puts carbon fiber, into the printing plane, but it's not strong across those layers. So this is something that you could lay in a repair context. You could lay, this is basically a tape. You could, if you had something that's cracked, you could actually lay this across, and then you could smear filament over it. I did it inside out so you could see the filament, but and then you could smooth that, and you would have just a completely solid fiber reinforced part. So I love that I can't wait to see what people do with that. I imagine if you have like a 3D printed wing and you want to reinforce like the wing root or places that are going to take a lot of stress, you might want to do this kind of hybrid sort of thing. The other thing we've seen, where this is not a great example, but like PLA actually welds acrylic together. So this is all
no
this
way.
Acrylic sheet. Yeah, I mean, and this is like we've done testing. The acrylic breaks before the weld joint does. So if you want to do, I kind of went crazy on this and started doing some stained glass stuff. But like I don't know that you can build a fish tank. I don't know. I haven't built anything watertight or even tried that. But like if you're making things and you have a laser cutter and you want to make some sort of assemblage and then weld it together, you can do that with this 3D pen. It does help to run hotter than these things don't get that hot because they don't have a fan. They don't have a heat. They have a heat break. And they just, because of the form factor and not needing we'll put them side by side, right? So this is my heater. And we have a fan with a big heat sink. We're just able to put a lot more thermal energy into melting plastic. And so you can also run like up to 300 C. This thing would melt down doing that. But yeah, so welding acrylic is a cool thing. And then the last cool thing I'm going to show you is this. This is patent pending, by the way. See that concave tip on that?
It's not coming through super great, but I can imagine.
Yeah, so this is what we call our surface filling nozzle. So it's a concave tip rather than a point. I'll show you this one. This is a standard nozzle. How do I pointed tip? And then this is our flat nozzle. Can you see that? So anyway,
I'm gonna see if we can make some magic behind the scenes, and
okay.
but please continue going.
I can send you photos of these too. But with doing that, you can work really thin. And so like making, art, I'm making a little flower thing for my wife. Here's that's generally when you spaghetti, and this is laying down thin sheets. So flower petals, right? And so this nozzle just smears things out. And it's very good when you're working in conjunction with this, where you want to just coat, your fiber reinforcement. So anyway, that's the smearing nozzle. No one has seen that before. I filed a provisional patent, mostly just because of the threat of people knocking us off in China. I believe in open source stuff, but I have this conflict about when you leverage that business model and when you don't. And there's this kind of tragedy of the commons that kind of happens, especially with Kickstarters. So anyway, we're working in trying to balance those needs,
Oh yeah,
that's the firmware. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a classic time-honored debate about like open source versus closed source, and how most people, I think, end up somewhere in the middle, of course, with the cloning issues and stuff. With Arduino, for example, mentioning that like part of the issue is getting flooded with requests for support because there's knockoffs and they're being asked to support these things that like aren't compatible, and like this isn't their issue, and like they don't have the staff for this and stuff like that. Besides, of course, the fact of like you bringing something new with hardware to the market and needing to make that sustainable, especially with something that is so I'm really stuck on this like repairability and modular aspect of it, because it makes me so happy that you're doing it that way. And we're gonna try and pull up a picture of two of these nozzles. But having watched some various people making 3D printing pen videos, it seems so cool that like not only do you get a heavy duty and like repairable and like high temperature capable pen, but you also get this smoothing tool that like it sounds like this sort of replaces the whole extra tool that I see other people having in order to make the smooth surfaces, and it's faster that way because you don't have a whole extra step of smoothing it over, as well as like saving money on having a whole extra tool or needing to maintain and track and like store a whole extra piece of equipment. So that seems incredible.
Yeah, well, the smoothing tool is really taking advantage of spreading it out while it's still hot. So as you're laying it down and it's, and the surface is hot, you're actually spreading it out rather than squirting out spaghetti and then coming back once it's cold with a soldering iron basically and smoothing it over. It's not perfect. It doesn't come out perfectly smooth. You always have little stripes, but if you are going for a full 3D printed solid surface that you want to be smooth, then this is way faster. That said, I'm a fan of the cosplay foam direction. Gyarados here is that. So is this. Cosplay foam is available in buckets. You can get them off Amazon. And if you have a slightly dense mesh, that stuff, you smear it on. You still have to sand it, but it's foam, and so it sands easier. It fills way faster. That's kind of the way to go, I think, for a lot of people. it's not waterproof. I mean, so if you want to do something that's outside, you probably don't want to do that. But yeah,
naturally. And you still don't want to be making like drinking vessels out of it and stuff, especially if you don't have like a full food safe thing. And there's always the concerns about, bacteria. This is always on my mind because I totally want to make some 3D printed vessels. But tangent, your connection got a lot better somehow. I wonder if someone stopped torrenting. So if you'd like to try and show us those nozzles again, maybe we can get like a better view.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Do you see that?
It's
so
great.
I don't know if you can focus on that, but there's a little dish. So
yeah, maybe if you block your face off. It sometimes like tries to focus on a face and then yeah, we can see that.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's patent pending, as opposed to the regular nozzle.
Classic.
I know that these are $300 3D pens, but I really like having two of them so that I can do this one and then switch back and forth. Especially when we're doing stained glass stuff, being able to go between black and clear is really nice. So yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately it's not letting me log in here, so I can't show people the video live right now. But you have been posting this stuff with the stained glass projects you've been doing. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, let me bring in Ivory too. So let me scooch over a little bit. Ivory is helping me with social media, but she's also a family friend. And before we ever met, she was doing stained glass stuff, and so she wanted to do this. And I think this is a whole new craft. I think we've like invented an art form.
Ooh,
Ivory, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ivory Townsend. I'm a glass artist, but I also work for Struder with social media and kind of managing the marketing so far, coming up with this upcoming Kickstarter. I've had the opportunity to kind of learn the advertising side, but when I first met Tim, my first question when he told me about Struder was, can I weld stained glass together so that I don't have to use copper tape foil? And he wasn't sure, and then just a few months later I ended up working for him for some social media, and I got to try it out myself. Turns out it does work if you use a glue stick. It will stick to actual glass, but we've been using it for kind of more of a faux stained glass option. We've been using my logo as a common element to kind of compare the methods head to head. We have here just 3D printed with texture. We use the Struder pen to add texture, so when you put it to the light, you can see the texture through, and it actually has a nice smooth surface.
So that one, that's a dual head 3D printer. So we're printing the clear and the black at the same time. So that's how it gets so clear. But then the texture, which you can see, when you do that, it doesn't really look very organic like stained glass normally is.
Sure.
We should have like a light behind it.
Yeah, we should. Here, this moves.
Yeah. But like, this is 3D printed all flat. And then we, well, that might be too much light.
Yeah.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Sweet spot.
Yeah. And this is that's too much light too. So let's show her the various methods. So this one is actually laser cut acrylic that we cut apart, sanded, and then welded back together. Yeah.
This one is the most like the stained glass method because we're using all the pieces cut apart and put back together.
Right.
But there's no silicone dust exposure. There's no glass like cutting yourself. You can file it with just sandpaper with a hand file.
And you don't have to source individual colors of glass.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we're doing is we're coloring these with alcohol ink markers, which do really well. So all of this is clear PLA that we're then tinting. There's another one.
Cool.
Now this is, I don't know if you can see how smooth that is. This is a PET sheet. So we actually put this in the printer, made a little offset, and then actually 3D printed onto this as an insert in the printer, and then came and textured it. I think that's my favorite method so far.
Yeah, it's
when you say
my favorite because you get all of the exposure to the texture on the opposite side, and you can also have enough room for the alcohol marker to have dimension. So you could see in the cracks of the extruder where it's darker in some places than others.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you get that kind of, like you say, dimension with it.
And then we also took PLA
This is oh, yeah, okay, good.
and we filled in the center with the butterfly on my logo. And Tim colored this one himself, but
I'm regretting some of my color choices.
but we
That looks
noticed
great.
here, if stylistically you want more of an opaque look like we had with Paige's mask, you can get that and still get that color through with the alcohol markers.
Yeah, and this one, because we laid down the PLA here, we actually then cut through it. You can see the texture. It can just kind of scalloped. So you can do secondary texturing with an iron as well.
And then this one is 3D printed like the first one we showed you. Similar, but the difference here is that we didn't have the clear put into the frame. On this one, I hand filled it all with the clear nozzle without the clear 3D printed inside the black frame. So that's the difference between those two.
And that's exactly the way that this one was made too. So all these lines are.
I love the Art Deco styling on that one.
Picture of all of them together on a wall.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So we think
like
that's like a whole like arts and craft thing that we've invented, I think.
Awesome.
That's gorgeous. And everyone, you can see some more photos of this on the website now, I think. And like you can get a similar type of stained glass type effect here, but it's not the exact thing that they're talking about here and demoing. So I'm hoping that we get to see some. Here's some of the stained glass though on the website, extruder.com. Very, very cool. And here you can see some of the filaments stacked up there as well. You were saying?
Yeah, I was reading a comment saying, is it possible that I can build my own 3D printing pen too? I would encourage someone to do that. You can totally, I mean, you're going to be, I was a little bit humbled by how hard it was, especially with the firmware, getting it to like respond to a trigger impact input. But yeah, they have it's called an EBB42, which is a tool head board that's normally put onto a 3D printer. It has the circuits for the thermistor, for the heater, for stepper motor control. It has everything you need. So any tool head board, that's how we prototype these. We actually end up having the final version of this is going to have a touch screen. There's a very custom firmware that we're having. It'll be open source. It's being built on top of RepRap firmware. So it's going to be a fork of RepRap firmware, which is open source, made by Duet 3D. And so we're actually building ours to be very hackable. But whenever we actually get these comments, especially on our videos for the Kickstarter, like, oh, I could build that in half a day, you know, out of spare parts from a thing. I say, go for it. Like, you can't build it in a day. I'll tell you that. But you know, anyone who is inspired to make something, I say, do it. You know, you're gonna learn.
That is a huge part of the ethos that you're working within here, and I very much vibes with my own experience as well, where it's like, yes, it may take you 3 years to learn everything that you need to build something at this level with these types of features and these types of advantages, like going 4 times faster than a regular 3D printing pen with the adjustable temperature and all that. But like, I've also seen people make a soldering iron by sticking a soldering iron tip on an old vape battery. So, you know, depending on what you're trying to do with it, I'm sure you probably could, you know, like I have a 3D printing pen. Sometimes sometimes I just like want it to go faster and I don't care if it looks sloppy. So I just push the filament through faster, and I know that it hates me, but I got it for free like 8 years ago. So, you know, you can do. I tried to make a 3D printing pen out of like a hot glue gun for recycled PLA, but it was a regular temperature one. I think it needed to be hotter, and like, but you know, if I had a high temperature hot glue gun, I'm pretty sure that would have worked. So like, you can do whatever. And like Andreas chimes in here, you know, you got to have certain considerations and stuff, and like protecting your filament from certain amounts of heat. One thing that I'd love to come back to, I just want to you talked about so many cool things in such quick succession. One of the ones was this fiber tape and 3D printing combination which blew my mind. So I've done some carbon fiber in the past, and what I've seen with a lot of the carbon fiber filaments, and you addressed this, is that a lot of them just sort of have bits of carbon fiber in the filament, and it doesn't really do anything like except abrade your nozzle, like, because the whole point of carbon fiber is that you have like a continuous filament, and it sounds like you have one of the fancy ones that actually does lay down a continuous line of filament,
I do, and
a
almost no one
fiber
uses
rather.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're super expensive, and you gotta have special nozzles and stuff. So like by combining it with this fiber tape, I think you're doing something incredible there, where it's like, oh yeah, you get the benefits of the continuous length with just like a tape that you can use as part of your structural design. And of course, you can, if you're using a 3D printing like a standard standalone one, you could do like an interweave the tape with the different layers, but getting it to be 3D, the whole method of like
Right.
stop the
Yeah,
printer,
totally
restart the printer.
impossible any other way.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. Like the possibilities are just like
Yeah.
exploding the brain right now, in a good way. And plus, okay, I have to make one more comment, which is so superficial, but I love cyberpunk aesthetic, and this thing looks so cyberpunk. You mentioned that you're gonna be able to anodize parts as well, so
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is actually just designed to be manufacturable. I wanted to make it, out of aluminum, not plastic, and have it be pretty minimal. So it's just a bent piece of metal. But I had other versions where it was more like a suitcase. So thank you for that. I have also gotten criticism because the internet is never uniform about my design aesthetics. So I appreciate hearing one in the positive.
I think it looks amazing, and it looks like exactly what it's supposed to do. It's a tool, and it's modular. People can swap out the nozzles, people can repair it, people can, I keep harping on that, but it's so cool. Just like the fact that it
Yeah.
really is just something that can grow with you. Not only that, but like repairability, but also like this is something that when a new head comes out, like your innovative smoothing head, or if you wanted to put, like you mentioned, a threaded heat set insert on your in your project, you could use a different tip for that. You can swap out the tips. You can when there's like a new firmware, if you can upgrade the pardon me, my language center stopped bringing it there for a second, but yeah, you can upgrade the rep firmware. There we go. When there's like an upgrade available and things like that, all kinds of different ways that this can grow with you, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, can I add to that list? So
No.
this is one of my
Yes,
first.
please.
We never talked about this because we're already getting like, why would you want this rather than 3D printer? But we're also making it so that it can be attached to other things. This is a end effector for a robot. We're going to shoot video with a friend that has a Denso robot he's going to let us use. And so right now it doesn't work this way, but this is going to be CAN bus. One of the reasons that we're doing this with Duet 3D is that it's going to be a CAN bus connection, and so then this can be integrated into other systems, either with a robot arm, or we can put it into a 3D chassis, or a SCARA robot or whatever. We're building this specifically to be hackable by people. So if you want a way of squirting thermoplastic into something for whatever purpose, this will work with you as long as it's a filament fed hot end. That'll also allow us to disconnect, have a version that has a trigger. We're going to have a foot pedal. So we're building it to be very much more extensible beyond what I've come up with as a 3D pen. And have it be used for 6 degree of freedom robot arm printers, or be a snap-in hot end for a regular 3D printer if you kind of want to have a 2-for-1 sort of thing. So we'll be very excited to kind of engage with the community and see where they want to take it. But the architecture is specifically being designed to allow that to happen.
That is so cool. So everyone, be sure to drop your questions in the chat. I am especially interested in like what are other types of augmentations people would put in, because yes, the foot pedal is such a cool. This ties into something I was going to ask actually, where my janky old one has basically just like an extrude button and a retract button. You can tell this very well loved. But yeah, when I'm using this, my hand, if I were to use this for a significant amount of time, my hand would definitely cramp up. And having a pedal, is there like a toggle on feature? That seems kind of like,
Yeah, it's gonna
to
have,
my brain, it seems simple to implement, but I don't know.
yeah, it's gonna have both. As I've done various things, sometimes you settle into a flow and you're using it at the same speed and you just kind of get used to that. If you're filling a large surface, that tends to be the case. Doing things like this, hand filled every single pane. And so, having full speed is not necessarily necessary. So it's gonna be one of those things where if you click it once, it'll stay on and you don't have to hold it down. Or if you hold it down and it'll stay held down and then you release it, it'll turn off. But there's a little timer differential there in the
Latching.
software.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So it'll be
Gotcha.
the first 3D pen with software. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, it's
There's
kind
also
of
going to be safety stuff. There's a gyroscope in the handle, so it's going to know if it's in its dock, and it will go back. One of the things that I like to do is you can push the temperature way, way, way beyond what you normally would print at, just so that you have a higher delta T in the tip and you can go faster. But that temperature will degrade the plastic if it stays there for too long. So you want to throttle it back when you let go. And so it has a whole, some of our patents are on that. Just the kind of this dynamic flow calibration, we'll be able to set it so that, it's going to ramp up the temperature of the nozzle and try to push hotter and hotter and hotter, so that you don't have to set the temperature and the speed together. You set the speed you want and it'll set the temperature that's appropriate. And then when you put it down for a few seconds, it'll retract all the way out and it'll go back to idle. And, if it's left off for a while, it'll automatically turn itself off, that kind of stuff.
cool. It really is sort of like paralleling all the advancements that people are doing with soldering irons you see these days, where they've got, operating systems and stuff, and people are upgrading the
Yep.
firmware of their soldering iron. And this iFixit one that I have that has all these smarts around like managing the temperature and stuff. In terms of safety, I have to come back real quick to something I mentioned
Yep.
earlier, which is the prostheses thing. I was making a makeup thing for someone with this TPU filament, and I have to remind people that you don't extrude directly onto your skin. That should be obvious, but just for just to make sure we're covered with legal, don't put 3D printing pen stuff on your skin. I actually, on Hackster, years and years ago, I published this tutorial about making instant 3D printed jewelry. And it looks kind of like terrible because, it was a quick project. But with that one, it was sort of like just drawing your design on a piece of paper and then tracing over it with 3D printing pen, which is something I've seen people do these days with with a transparent overlay, which makes a lot more sense than doing it directly onto paper. But people have also, just in the general 3D printing space, even with full-size machines these days, I've been seeing people get really excited about thermoforming after 3D printing something. So getting a faster print by printing something flat, and then like thermoforming it, basically like dunking it in boiling water and forming it around a form. That is no longer a word to me. But anyway, yeah, so there's so many things that you can do with that post thermoforming aspect with 3D printing pens as well, and much more clever ways to do it for me. But again, as always, don't do it on your skin. One thing I'd love to ask you, oh yes, it is so what, if anything, is there something that you've wanted to implement for this with this before launch, but you're excited to do further down the line? You just couldn't pack it in this in time for the launch.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned TPU. I think it's the only feature that probably isn't going to be in this, and it's the TPU can't push it through a tube, right? So the TPU will not work with this. But there are MIG welders out there. This is very much a MIG welder form factor where they have a smaller motor in the handle to do a push-pull sort of arrangement. And so that will be something that we do later. I think actually working with Voron or LDO or one of those people to make a 3D printer that this snaps into, so that you have a 3D printer and you have a pen and it's all one thing. That's definitely a follow-on project.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so things like that. I mean, I definitely want to build a robot 3D printing arm. That would be nice. But we're gonna launch it, and then once we have this baseline product out with its kind of baseline features, we're making a bunch extra outside of the Kickstarter campaign, and we're gonna try to work with people and just see, because I know for myself, like the more I've played with it, the more like cool things I think we've learned that you can do with it. And I know that I haven't thought of everything that's possible. So I really want to see what the community comes up with, and maybe we'll chase some of those directions as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. It makes me think also of these these stations for where it's like both got a soldering iron and it's got a hot air rework, air gun all in one, where like you have these sort of multifunctional stations. Absolutely seeing like a standalone 3D printer base and then like a pen attached to it and stuff for really sort of like paralleling electronics design and fabrication in all those different ways. We have this question. We did actually talk about this a while ago. We kind of talked about it, although we didn't talk about how the fiber can degrade or abrade your nozzle and
Yeah.
stuff. I wonder if you're going to be
So
providing a
hardened
nozzle.
nozzles will be available. Yeah, hard nozzles will be available. We don't have them yet. There's a company called MicroSwiss that's here in the US. They're not Switzerland. It's Swiss because it's a Swiss lathe. But they make this extruder already. They make high-end upgrade parts for 3D printers. So there are kind of on the hardware side, they're our partner for manufacturing, and they have I think it's called CM2 hardened nozzle, where they have a hardened insert that goes into, there you go. And so they have a technology that is like that. They also have, so you see that Flowtech hot ends that was right there. Yep. Those are nozzles. So, even if I get hit by a bus, you'll be able to get nozzles for this from them. And they have been really cool to work with. And so basically that is, we also want to make something that if you're going to invest $300 in a 3D pen, it needs to be repairable. It needs to be, you need to be able to source, parts from it. And so, working with them also gives us that, which is great. But there's also this thing called CHT, which is a technology owned by Bondtech. And I think this is a cool deviation into the idea of how open source works with patents. So this is CHT is called core heating something, and it's an insert you put into the nozzle, and it splits the stream in 3 different directions so that I can heat quicker, and it can actually increase throughput. So Bondtech makes this CHT. Yeah, there you go. The three-way split. It's their patented technology, but they work with basically everybody. So MicroSwiss has licensed it, so it's one thing, I think, when you have a patent and then you say, I'm not going to share this with anybody, versus people in this ecosystem. I think maybe because there's such a good tradition of open source stuff in 3D printing, that even though this is patented, they've made that IP available freely. And so MicroSwiss makes CHT stuff, and they work with that. And so I really like that kind of model, and I think we want to, we're not going to keep MicroSwiss from making nozzles for our thing and selling them directly. I really don't care, right? So we'll just let people go in that direction.
That's awesome. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up in a couple of minutes here. This has been so fascinating, and I've got so many more questions for you. But you know what? We're just going to have to bring you back after the Kickstarter and ask you some more, and maybe do like an on-site feature or something, so we don't have these. Thank you, everyone, by the way, for bearing with the connection issues. It is an unfortunate fact of life when we do a virtual chat like this, but it does enable us to bring you more guests who are doing amazing stuff like Tim and Ivory are doing over there. So just as we wrap up here, I will take us back through all the different things that we talked about today, or hit a few of the main key points. And Tim, if you'd like to think of anything you'd like to toss in there as a last thought before we have to say goodbye here today. But anyway, so everyone, you can go to struder.com, struder.com, I can enunciate, and you can find out all about this awesome pen. And if you go down and hit reserve yours today, you'll find yourself on this page where you can register for our pre-launch discount. If you do an early support, then you'll be able to get a nice little discount that Tim mentioned earlier. Learn more about that. There's also Inventopia. If you're in the Davis area or you stop by, go check out that incubator. One of the sounds like you were really early in the sort of makerspace concept. So probably been around for a while here. Oh yeah, 8 years. Wow. So we've got
Yeah,
also
closer to 9 now.
wow. Also, Gunrock Venture Studio we've got going on with a company that builds companies, more like cool ag tech type stuff. And our wonderful host, Hackster.io, inventing the future with the Arduino Uno Q and App Lab. Go check out that right now, and you can get one of let's see, was it 100 units? Let's see, 300,
300.
300 Uno Q boards to help you bring your ideas to life. So definitely go register for that contest, do your proposal, figure out what you would want to build with this, and check out Hackster's other contests and giveaways going on, as well as the blog at Hackster News, all this other cool stuff that you can find that I'm not going to look at because I will get distracted again. But Tim, what a pleasure. Anything you'd like to throw in there as a final stinger or reminder or something to watch out for? Or
I'm excited about the Arduino Q too. Having a higher level, lower level controller to talk to each other. I mean, yeah. As a robotics nerd, I love that. No, this has been great. I've enjoyed chatting with you. We've been kind of under the radar as this thing has been slow, so it's fun to do a little bit of media and get some people chatting about it. So yeah, you can hit us up if you want. If you have any questions, we love chatting to people who have ideas and uses or just curious about it. So
and what's the best place for people
contact me
to
directly? Tim@struder.com. Please just fire me off an email. Happy to chat with people.
There you go, folks. Tim@struder.com. And thank you to both you and Ivory for joining us today. So many cool live demos, and I'm so excited to see more of what comes out of this collab. Oh, let's get you in the frame there.
She's already gone.
Ah, so it goes. Brief but wonderful appearance. Anyway, thanks again to everyone who dropped questions and comments in the chat. Love all of our audience. It's wonderful getting to chat with you every other Tuesday on Hackster Café. Tim, what a joy. Everyone, have an awesome rest of your day, whatever day it is for you, and hack on.